When you live with chronic illness, the body can feel like a stranger. And when fertility enters the conversation, grief can land in the womb itself. In this episode of Reproductive Rebel, I am joined by Christina Kantzavelos to explore fertility, chronic illness, and the emotional alchemy of healing. We are talking nervous system regulation, body betrayal, hormone expression, and how grief becomes a portal, not a dead end. This is not about forcing the body to comply. It's about rebuilding trust, safety, and sovereignty. One breath, one cycle, one ritual at a time. Join us for Grief in the Womb, Fertility, Chronic Illness, and the Emotional Alchemy of Healing. Now available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am overjoyed to be joined by a specialist in an area that, we could have so many juicy conversations. And I actually don't think it's an area that has been talked about nearly enough. So can you tell I'm excited, guys? I can't wait to have this conversation. And Christina is such a beautiful human. So if you would introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do before I get carried away.
Yes. Hi, Adrienne. I'm just as excited to be here because, like you said, this is not a topic that is discussed enough in this area. So my name is Christina Kantzavelos, and I am a licensed psychotherapist specializing in chronic illness, complex PTSD, neurodivergent diagnoses, and fertility and other life challenges, grief, etc., which that goes with all of them. So very thrilled to be here in the intersection of chronic illness and fertility today.
Yes. So when I had the opportunity to connect with Christina in the screening call ahead of time, I was like, there's so much we could talk about here, because so many of the topics that Christina works with touches the lives of literally millions of people because of the niche that she works in. I loved the piece about neurodivergence too. We might have to do something in that arena as well, because I see a lot with postpartum recovery and things like that, that really touches neurodivergent humans in a very different way. But one of the things that really stuck out to me was this intersection of chronic illness and fertility. And I see this a lot. I mean, if we look at the statistics, 80% of autoimmune conditions are in women. Okay, so not only on the fertility journey do women tend to own whether a pregnancy is successful or not. And I want to put that out there worded that way, because you're actually only 50% of the equation, but so many more of the diagnostics are thrown the women's way before a semen analysis is even done, that a lot of times women really own that, and it becomes part of the fabric of, I'm quote unquote failing as a woman, but now let's throw the chronic illness piece in on top of it. There is something in my system that has been, I keep using quotes because these are things that I've heard from clients, right? My body is betraying me. Or I feel like I can't do the basic things that a woman's body should be able to do, and I have this illness and on top of it. And so because I've heard these phrases over and over again throughout the course of the time I've been in practice, when I connected with Christina, I was like, oh, yes, please, let's go deep with this one because it touches so many.
So many. And like you said, the majority of autoimmune diseases are female. Like females are the ones who are diagnosed the most often. And then how can fertility not be impacted in some way, shape, or form?
Well, and so this speaks to one of the things that we talked about in terms of the nervous system being in a regulated state. Okay. So there's a reason why women get touched a little more often by autoimmune. I mean, some of it has to do with the distribution of which organs are producing our sex hormones, right? Like we're more reliant on our adrenals than our male counterparts are, which is why we're more sensitive to stress, which is why lack of sleep, just that alone can be enough of a stressor that it puts pressure on the adrenals, and so many more reasons beyond that. But stress is a really big factor.
Huge. And if anyone follows Dr. Gabor Mate, he speaks to this quite a bit. Why is it that women are affected disproportionately compared to men? And a big reason is just the nervous system being so dysregulated over a long period of time, being in a chronic stress response. Why is that? Well, women are literally pushed to be, as he says, the goodest, the sweetest, the best, even if that's not how they are authentically feeling. So women are more likely to people please or to fawn, right? To not actually express what they're truly feeling. They don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They have a tendency to say yes when they really want to say no. And over time, and I will kind of explain the mechanism, I mean, our body will begin to say no for us if we don't. If we do not speak on its behalf, it'll finally take the reins and go, we're not doing this anymore. When someone's just so burnt out and exhausted and just cannot, you can only click that override button so many times before your body has to press it for you. And the issue with this chronic stress response, like it keeps us in this fight or flight hold pattern where our brain literally thinks there's this tiger chasing after us perpetually. Like we don't bounce back from it if we're constantly in it and something continues to trigger it or feed it, or you experience another trauma, big or small, little t, big T's. And when I work with someone, it's not so much I see fight or flight, I see components of it, but I more so see that fawning response, that's the third F, or a freeze response where you're just so overwhelmed, you don't know what to do. You're literally staring at a wall going, I can barely function. This is really hard. And it is really hard. So when we're in that whole pattern of chronic stress response, fight or flight, we are just constantly releasing cortisol, right? Stress hormone. And the more cortisol we produce, the more our immune system is affected, our nervous system is affected, our autonomic nervous system especially, which impacts basically our entire bodily functions, from our heart rate to our blood pressure to heat regulation, everything. So this is kind of what leads and lends itself to heading towards autoimmune disease, chronic illnesses. When we're just in that constant state of fight or flight, our body's healing goes on the back burner, survival goes on the front burner. Our body does not have enough time to restore itself, to come back to itself. And if we're constantly masking, whether it's chronic illness or a neurodivergence or just people pleasing or what have you, our body isn't able to just be itself, right? To have the time to really go into that level of restoration. And Dr. Gabor Mate says authenticity is the antithesis of disease.
Gosh, I agree with that so much.
100%. And it's complicated, right? It's a journey for all of us, including myself. I think it always will be, until I take my last breath here on earth, this path of authenticity.
And that's hard, especially in today's climate, right?
Yes.
Like there are a lot of things in today's climate that make it not feel safe to be seen, to be heard, to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to speak your truth.
Yes.
And when I say speak your truth, this is not the I'm just going to be a keyboard troll online because I'm mad about things. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that authentic, face-to-face, interpersonal communication where you're like, I feel really overwhelmed right now. And
Mm.
that's not perceived as a weakness. Somebody can hold that space for you and go, I witness you in this. And like, we
Mm.
just don't have enough places and spaces. And women's autonomic nervous systems need sisterhood that can hold that kind of a conversation. We need it to regulate our systems, as you were
We
talking
require
about.
it because,
Do.
right, our bodies hadn't been like tested on until very recently. Our nervous systems function differently than men. What regulates a woman's nervous system? Oxytocin. That. So what you're describing, that womanhood, that togetherness,
It's so
it's vital.
important. It is.
Yeah.
It's vital. It's absolutely vital to our survival. And so this is why I loved that like we could start having this conversation because when your body feels like it's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger all the time, your primal brain screams, survive, 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 and procreate goes on the back burner. This could be
Mhm.
100 unanswered emails in your inbox. You don't have to have a physical threat, although your nervous
Mhm.
system will perceive it that way.
Amen.
So now let's put this overlaid on the fertility journey. Okay. So we're more susceptible to stress being problematic in a healthy expression of our hormones and the way our body moves through the world. Now let's look at it from the chronic illness angle. And I know that this is your area of specialty. This is where the body is like a four-alarm fire. It is like yelling at you that there is dysregulation. I need you to slow down. I need you to stop. I need you to hear what it is that I'm saying. Because a lot of times we don't listen to the body when it's whispering at us. These are subtle symptoms in that body knowing, right? Something doesn't feel quite right. Or maybe you've been to the doctor several times and the doctor's like, oh no, you're fine. You're just being emotional, because a lot of women get that.
Hmm.
And the symptoms get louder and louder. And then by the time you get to a chronic illness, the body has been screaming for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it took for me. I mean, mine whispered before it finally screamed and even worse, shut down, and sometimes that's what it takes to get healthy. That's what it takes to cultivate a relationship with your body of communication, of love, of respect. I mean, it's a journey to not hit that override button and to really pause and honor what your pace is at this very moment in time. So when you're on a fertility journey and you're experiencing this all at the same time, it can feel very complicated and overwhelming naturally.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Well, and your heart is in it, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to get pregnant. By the time most people make the decision that they want to get pregnant, they have been either thinking about it for some time or they've been putting it off. Or at least, like, there was a statistic released recently that in the United States, there are more women over 40 having babies than teenagers for the first time in history. And while that speaks to like better education around sexual health, I think it also says a lot about how we have put off this journey as we build careers and get ourselves into like stable places that way. And then many women, by the time they are like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I'm going to do the thing. They feel like there's pressure and they're on a clock
Hmm.
and they're walking into it with something that they didn't expect, whether it's a fibroid or something like celiac disease or some other kind of chronic illness. Because, yes, we sometimes have the predisposition in our genetics for some of this, but like our environment, it affects the expression of what we have in our hereditary background. And then there's just plain and simple environmental stress on the system that affects the expression of that blueprint as well. And so I really resonated with what you were saying, that the body was whispering and I ignored those whispers for a while. Like, I truly believe that I'm sitting in the celiac box now because I had such a drive to people please and be perfect and not show any weakness and all of these things. And it made me so sick that my body was like, girlfriend, you have to sit down and slow down. And it's actually a part of my recurring miscarriage journey, quite frankly. So it really does affect the way that people move through the world. And then they start asking questions like, okay, because I'm sick now, can I even have a baby? Is it safe for me to have a baby?
Yeah. And those are real questions. And depending on what you have going on and how you relate to it, what kind of treatment you're receiving, I mean, this is really layered. And with that being said, I have had plenty of clients successfully have babies with chronic illness and are fabulous, I can say this confidently, amazing mothers, and may still have symptoms. However, it's not in the way of them mothering their children. It's finding this pace and this harmony within the home, within the environment, with support to like allow for them to fill their cup up as they pour it into their baby and into the rest of their family. I think it's important to talk about those success stories, because sometimes we go into this with such a fear response. And I'm not saying those fears are not valid, and every case is complicated and layered, as I've said before, but it's important to also hear the success stories.
Yes, I really feel like there is enough in the collective narrative around you have this percentage chance of like failure rate. And like, I feel like the way that the language around it is spun in such a way that it feels like if you have a chronic illness, fertility is an uphill battle for you, but it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. I've had clients who've been on fertility journeys, gotten pregnant, and have felt the best they've ever felt during their pregnancy. It's not guaranteed for everyone. And just like, there's so many different types of stories. And the same goes for chronic illness. I have doctors telling me, and so many of my clients, this is going to be the rest of your life. And this is what it's going to look like. You're likely going to be couch or bed bound, and that's it. And it's like sending them pictures on top of my height. Like, really? I'm making a point that everybody is so different, and our bodies are pretty intelligent and smart, and many are capable of healing and restoring themselves with the right tools and support. It is possible. I can say that with confidence because I've seen so many people get to this other side. But with that being said, in the interim, there's so much grief, there's so much confusion, there's so much loss of identity, of again, layered. I don't know how you feel, in relation to your journey as well.
Yes, definitely layered, definitely a lot of grief. And each time I had a loss on my journey, I found that it opened doors. And it's something that I often encourage my clients to take a look at. And it's hard to do when you're in the depths of that grief. But as the cloud starts to move, really honor and allow yourself to grieve. Because at the very beginning, and this is no fault of my husband's, he was just trying to be supportive. But he's like, well, we'll just try again next month. And for me, it felt like a death, right? It was at a certain level, but like it felt like a failure. It felt like a death. It felt like something I had to mourn, and I had to emotionally work through that process before I could just get on the horse and try again, right? And he was just trying to be like positive and it's okay, like we'll just dust ourselves off and try again. Like, and I know that he was trying to be a cheerleader in saying it, but there were times where I felt so on an island emotionally alone because I had to work through the grief that I felt
Mm-hmm.
over that loss. And once I had time to process that through my nervous system, then I was able to take that hindsight as 2020 look at it and go, oh, I really feel like there was some divine intervention here, that it wasn't time, or my body needed to heal a little more in this direction,
Mm-hmm.
or something had to happen in our household dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was a door that was opened. The person that I connected with when I had this particular loss occur, it energetically was the right connection that needed to be made at that exact time. And this is the fruit that came from it. And so, at the sake of sounding a little woo here, I kind of felt like my spirit baby was working for me on the other side, trying to help move me in alignment with where I needed to be. And my whole practice was born from that journey. All the things that I learned on that journey, all of the places and spaces that I couldn't find answers on that journey. And it's one of the reasons that Reproductive Rebel came into existence, is I wanted women to know that they had options, that there were people that could hear them, witness them, see them where they are in their journey. And if I've been coming up against closed doors or walls and I feel like I don't have anywhere else to go, oh, here are some other things that maybe I hadn't thought of, or pushing the envelope outside the box a little bit because the diagnostics aren't telling us exactly why I'm having this issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, so many things in there. I mean, one is the diagnostics. They can only give you so much of the picture. They're not looking at your environment or your nutrition intake or your support system or your nervous, big one, especially as women. It's that connection. And there's just so many facets that aren't looked at, which is why it's so important for someone to work with like a coach such as yourself to move through this, to really take that holistic, integrative look into everything. And also with the grief, and if that's related to past traumas, right? And that's when I come in, it's like understanding where the root of this dis-ease may be in the body. And then we have the dynamics with our partners where, you know, specifically men, when it comes to grief, they're much more solution focused. Like, and they really genuinely think they're being helpful. And they are in their own way, but it feels like spiritual bypassing when we're like experiencing complete and utter loss, maybe yet again or another time. It's really hard. I was listening to something too recently that even if you're not on a fertility journey, apparently just being on your cycle like naturally feels like grief and loss because, right, you are experiencing, well, like you were supposed to bring life in. That's what we're biologically created for. And I never thought of it that way. Like, no wonder we are feeling, it's not just our hormones, we are genuinely feeling more emotional because we are experiencing grief on this very specific nuance that no one told us about. No one talked to us about these things growing up. So bypassing, ignoring it, covering it up, it's like, how does that help us in any way, shape, or form? Like, and this is a lesson I'm constantly learning, especially in this field of like, we should not bypass. It is not helpful to us to bypass our emotions. Feeling is healing.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Feeling is healing. Yes. That, so much that. The other thing that you said that really stuck out to me was like the subconscious relationship we have with grieving at the end of our cycle too. Like when I first started doing this work, because I'm an East Asian medicine trained practitioner, I was very much looking at patterns, right? Like, and everything about what I do is pattern recognition. Don't get me wrong. But like, working with people, I was looking more at the physical presentation of things. And the longer that I went along, and I know that this is maturity, but that comes with it, because East Asian medicine disciplines understand that there is an interconnectedness between spiritual life and that doesn't define religion. That's your connection with divine energy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And something bigger than you, whatever you want to call that. And your emotional or energetic body and the physical body, and that there is this synergy between all of them. I really believe in the years that I've been doing this, the longer I go along, particularly in women's health, I feel like that emotional body, that emotional energetic body plays a far bigger role than anything else because you have physical symptoms. And this goes back to what you were saying about Gabor Mate, who I think is brilliant, is that you're having a set of physical symptoms as a result of what's happening in the emotional body. And if you look at physical symptoms more like a language and the way that your body is trying to communicate with you and co-create with you, instead of, oh, well, I have this headache, it's taking me out of my life, and now you're positioning it like the enemy instead of as a subtle way that the body is trying to communicate with you. Not only does it change your frame in terms of how you look at your body and its performance and how it's showing up for you, but recognizing that emotions play such a huge role in the physical expression of the body. I don't know about you, and I'd love to get your take on this, but one of the things that always makes me kind of chuckle, only because of the perspective that I have now, when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I was like, so tell me about like how things feel in your life right now. Like, are you stressed? Oh, no. No, I feel good. And then they go on to list like the fact that they're screeching into like every parking lot on like two wheels because they're late, because they have an overpacked schedule and all of that kind of stuff. But because they do it so often, it just feels like another day at the office for them. And their
Mm-hmm.
nervous system is not feeling that way, even though they've learned to numb it out.
Mm-hmm. 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 It becomes a baseline,
Mm-hmm.
right? A familiar hell over what we're working with folks to reach this unfamiliar heaven where unfamiliar, and I call it that because it's in and of itself, it's kind of scary. It feels hellish when you're repatterning your nervous system and the way you feel about your life, your body, how you engage with your environment, how you speak. Your body hears everything you say. Like the mind, body, spirit connection is beyond fierce. So yeah, it's repatterning your nervous system to not see that as normal.
And that right there is such a huge task.
Yeah. It's a process.
It really is. Because, like, we've been social conditioned
100%.
to think that we have to do all of these things. And I'll ask women, so where have you said no this week? And they'll just look at me. And I'm like, but did you have to do that thing or did you feel obligated? That's a very different frame. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people don't challenge that. And I find it's a really productive line of conversation when I'm working with people too, because a lot of times we just think we have to, because we've been socialized to think that we have to. I mean, during the pandemic, the mental, emotional load that was placed on women, whether you were a parent or not, was astronomical because you were trying
Beyond
to balance so
everything.
much.
Everything, literally everything.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to. No one is. And like we said, if we do not say no, or even, so I see this with mothers, like, how can I put myself first? I have X amount of children or X amount of responsibilities. All I ask is that you just add yourself into the equation then. Just into the equation.
Yeah.
Where are you considered? Women will do so much to avoid inconveniencing someone else or something else.
Yes.
And it can be just so beyond harmful to every part and aspect of themselves. And here we come to healing, which is reclaiming that for yourself, adding yourself into the equation, saying no.
So, how do you advise people to begin working with the grief side of this equation? Because I think that is something that is like subtly understood in the body knowing. Like, if every woman listening to this really checked in with her body, she would feel it as a little undercurrent in her system somewhere. And has never really given it a voice or acknowledged it.
I hear so often women are incredibly smart and intuitive. I don't think I've ever met a woman who really, when you get to know them, isn't that way. And there's collective grief. Even if you think you're not experiencing it on a personal level, there's collective grief. There is a lot to grieve at this moment in time. And we as women take on a lot of it. So what I hear often is, Christina, I'm just so scared that if I start to cry, I'm not going to be able to stop. Yeah. Pandora's box is going to open and that's it. And there's a couple of things to this. Like, one, the most intense part of an emotion is only said to last 90 seconds. So when I'm working with someone and we really start to do, I call it irrigation, trauma irrigation work, because we're irrigating what is not yours to hold. Shame, guilt, so much. And when we start to do that, often when a person gets on the other side, they're like, wow, that was like, yeah, it was intense, but it wasn't what I expected. I thought I was going to blow up, or I wasn't going to be able to stop. However, we're co-creating this, I call it a safe and courageous space, because it really takes a lot of courage to be with yourself, to not avoid. We'll do everything to avoid these parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of or feel guilty of. And I always say, like, healing is actually loving those parts just as much as the parts we already love. It's loving all aspects, all pieces. And anyway, so we get to the other side and they're like, okay, this wasn't as bad. So where does one start? Shame, I say shame dies when we are in a space where we feel safe. So it's finding those safe spaces. That can be with a therapist, that can be with the coach. Of course, a therapist may have more training around trauma and somatics. In some ways, not always the case. It's not automatically taught in grad school. So keep that in mind if you're searching for someone, but really finding a person where your nervous system goes, yes, this is it. This is a person I know I can open up to. Like, I feel safe. I feel good. There is a click. If there's not a click, on to the next one. Remember, providers, any kind of provider you work with technically is working for you. You're paying them, not the other way around. So it's important that you are surrounded by people that are on your team, are rooting for you, are in alignment. You can say no to a provider who is not in alignment, because I feel like that can sometimes do more harm than good.
Yeah.
Easily. And then there's also groups. I'm a big fan of Codependence Anonymous. It's free. You can go online, you can go in person. Codependence is basically people pleasing anonymous. That's what I call it. And you're able to talk about something that's going on in your life and hear other people speak. You can also just stay silent and listen, but that's a great way to introduce yourself to this. And keep in mind, not all groups are the same. And if one's not in alignment, maybe try another one to see if that's more for you. Also, support groups as well. There are plenty out there. Again, finding the one that is in alignment. The goal is that you walk away from any dynamic or connection feeling more empowered or regulated than disempowered or dysregulated.
Mm-hmm. And I want to take what you said a step further, that feeling dysregulated and disempowered is so high in the chronic illness world, because a lot of times they have been to a lot of providers. They haven't felt like they've been seen and heard. They start trying to go when they have the subtle little symptoms, and it's chalked up to you're being emotional or hysterical, or there's nothing quantifiably here.
Yeah.
And it snowballs. And so it's hard, especially when you've had a chronic illness and you've been feeling like you're adrift for a while
Mhm.
in your body, because
Mhm.
when you wake up in the morning, you don't know how you're going to feel when you wake up. And then throw being a cyclical being in on top of it, like that's going to change every day. We're an
Yeah.
infradian rhythm body, right? So we're going to be changing every day. Also, when we're in our bleeding years, particularly. So that in and of itself can feel unstable.
Hmm.
And then not being able to feel like we can be held in our vulnerability and authenticity just adds another layer to that whole dynamic.
Oh, 1,000%. I say chronic illness in and of itself is traumatic. It is considered, it's a medical trauma. And this field is not equipped to meet us where we need it to meet us. Most providers are not trained on what chronic illness is and what it presents like. They receive very little training. And then again, we add to the intersection of fertility. And so often what patients will hear, like you just said, it's all in your head, right? And that's hilarious to me because your head is attached to your body, right? So like, yeah, yes, but no,
Yes.
that's not how it works. The moment you hear that's like on to the next, like you know something's off, move on to the provider who believes you. I believe that our healing begins when a provider believes us and really truly listens to us.
Yes, I agree. 100,000% I agree. I've had people in my office go, "Oh, I wish you were an OBGYN because like I would really like to have you do like all my care because I feel safe and I feel held with you." And it's one of the biggest compliments, and it like makes my heart sing every time I hear something like that, because we have so few places and spaces where we can show up in all of our messiness and have it be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay to be messy.
Hmm.
It's okay.
I think that's what we should probably say again. It's okay to be messy, because as women, we're not given any understanding, compassion, or reach for being anything except put together and perfect and literally all the things for everybody's brain, remembering all the things, making sure the dinner is done, making sure the house is clean. Like all of that pressure gets put on generally the female bodied person in the household. And there is no place. And that's something that I have had to actively work at. So I witness you in what you were saying about like I've had to actively work at allowing myself to be this way. I have two teenage girls in my house, and I'm like, no, I need to be messy today. This is how I feel. And I need to just share that I'm not feeling 100% today. And that's okay. Because
Mhm.
if I can use that language, they will feel empowered to be able to use that kind of language. And then that's setting the tone, right? It's like that Buddhist concept of you take care of what's inside of your head and in the four walls of your home. And that's the part that's going to make the change in the collective.
That's the ripple effect. And it's so important you said that because you're giving them permission to also say the same when they're feeling it. If you grew up in a household where your mother was striving to be perfect all of the time, especially out in the public arena, you normalize that.
Yes.
Just so many people. And also, when you say no to someone, right? You're making space to say yes for what is in alignment for you. That person also is now given permission to say no when something isn't completely in alignment. And it's okay to disappoint people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that it's okay to disappoint people. It's inevitable. They say you can be the juiciest peach in the world. There's going to be people who just don't like peaches. Like it's being okay.
I love that analogy.
It's true. It's true. And I forget, I think it was maybe it was Kat Von D who said that. But when I heard that, like, yes, it makes sense. As a recovering people pleaser, like it was something I needed to hear. Like, it's okay. Not everyone is going to like me. And I'm still going to be okay and survive. At some point that felt like that threatened my survival growing up.
Yeah.
But as an adult, it does not. People cannot like me, and I still can thrive in my life. And if you're listening to this, same goes for you. The right people will be like, a friend of mine always says, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. And that sticks. Like the people who are closest in my life, I can just be myself. I can be authentic. I can be the weirdo that I am. And they love it. They meet me where I am and vice versa. And we get to be messy in front of each other because that's real. And it feels good. And we can do anything. We just can't do everything. So we get to choose what feels good for us to pick for the day, for the hour, for the minute.
Oh, I love that. Your vibe really does attract your tribe.
Amen.
It's really true. And I had to laugh when you were talking about like, they accept me in all my weird. I was like, Christina, this is why we connect with each other. I've always been the Aquarian weirdo. Like, I get it.
Yeah. It's like they accept my scientific woo. And
yes.
Again, yes. Because there's science behind the woo, you know?
There's actually a lot of science behind the woo. And I just knew like when I met you, I was like, oh, this would be such a great conversation to have on this show. And I feel like that was such a beautiful thread to kind of bring us to a close in this episode too. So if you were to leave our audience with a final thought, what would that be?
I think if you're listening, you are not alone in this. You are so loved. There is support. There are the resources. There are tools out there for you. I believe in your body's capability to heal itself and to thrive, not just survive.
Oh, beautiful. So if people want to reach out and work with you, Christina, because like you said, your skill set is one, in much need all over, but two, there are not a lot of people with this kind of special training. So how can people locate you?
So you can find me at Begin Within Today. That's on all social media platforms, or beginwithintoday.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this conversation. I have just loved my time with Christina. She has graciously agreed to come back and do another episode with me. So make sure you like, subscribe, follow wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or if you're watching this on YouTube, so that you can catch the next great conversation with Christina. Have a great day. And until next time, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are. I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.